How's it going, everyone? Welcome to the Theory of Anything podcast. This is episode 3. This week we talk about the Mayweather-McGregor fight and Jon Jones failing his drug test with USADA. I hope you enjoy it.
So here we are. We're 2 days out from McGregor versus Mayweather.
Right.
So what are your thoughts? Who've you got first of all in this thing?
Against McGregor and Mayweather?
Yeah.
It's a hard question to answer, honestly. There's just too many factors. I think the smart bet would obviously be Mayweather, but there's things that Conor has in his going for him that kind of makes me want to go against that as well. It kind of makes me want to, if I was betting money, that I would want to bet money on Conor.
Well, that's what a brilliant job Conor has done. Is Conor has convinced people that he can win this thing, and that's can you imagine another mixed martial artist who could convince anybody that they could beat Floyd Mayweather in a boxing match?
No, I've actually had that exact same thought when thinking about this. Is the only other person that I could think of that might get the world kind of interested, and even still probably not even to the degree that McGregor has done, but that's honestly Jon Jones.
Yeah, I mean, that could obviously never happen for the size, but yeah.
Oh yeah, honestly, he's way too big.
But also, I mean, the only other people in MMA, I mean, they teased a little bit George St. Pierre maybe boxing once or twice, but he's too big to get the fight with Mayweather. But he's also, this fight, he wouldn't have been able to talk to people the way that Conor has. Conor's bravado is part of what is Conor's bravado is what's got people believing he can win the thing. I mean, he's out here, he's walking in the place like he owns it, and this is his debut. He's 0-0. He's without
a doubt the hype master of not just UFC, but probably the hype master of combat sports, period.
I can't think of somebody else who could sell that to people. I can't think of anybody else that could sell this to people.
Oh yeah, that's exactly what I meant when I said that I have no idea who else could even make this an interest, let alone the spectacle that it's become. Yeah, I mean, his personality and his record, both together, has made this such a spectacle that it is. I mean, it's a $100 pay-per-view. I can't think of any other pay-per-view that's $100.
Yeah, and I'm gonna pay it. I don't know about you, but I'm gonna pay it. I'm gonna do it because I have to see it. And the crazy thing is, I'm almost beating myself up that I have to see it, because when I start to forget about listening to Conor talk and I start to get into it on paper, I'm like, are you really going to spend $100 to watch this dude get killed by Floyd Mayweather?
He's not going to get killed, man. He's not going to get killed.
I think he's going to get. I don't know if he'll get knocked out, because I don't know if Floyd will sit on his punches enough, because Floyd's hands are notoriously brittle.
Okay, well, here's my thoughts on why Conor might have a shot in, at the very least, not getting blasted. He could. Okay, well, you look anywhere online and they're going to say the exact same things that I'm going to say, and it's because it's true. Conor's 29 years old. In his prime, he has the most confidence, at least visually, than any other fighter I can think of at least in modern history. You have Muhammad Ali, but I don't know, man. It's kind of hard to compare Conor to Muhammad Ali, but
I mean, Floyd's cocky too, though. I mean, Floyd is very, very confident. I mean, at this point, Floyd is. I think the only reason Floyd's not shouting from the rooftops is because 49-0. You don't have to shout. That speaks for itself.
Maybe, but you also
when he was younger, Floyd was shouting it from the rooftops too. When he was younger,
I'm sure. You have something to prove, and that actually goes into another reason why I think Conor has at least a slight edge over Mayweather. Is that okay? I already said that he's in his prime. Mayweather's 40. Now, granted, Mayweather hasn't been he hasn't suffered as much head trauma as a lot of fighters his age. But he does have, I mean, he's aging. It is an aging mind. His reflexes aren't going to be the same like it was when he was in his 20s or early 30s. And plus the issue with his hands. And
I mean, one of the guys out of his own camp, though, is saying he's sparring, like doing full days of sparring and maybe getting tagged 6 or 7 times.
Yeah, but he also said that he's not training as hard as he used to for this fight. Not because he's downplaying Conor, at least not wholly the reason, but it's because of his age. He said that he can't put the same amount of intensity into his training that he used to.
Yeah, but is he lying?
I don't know. See, that's
is he lying? I mean, he could be saying that so that McGregor's camp hears that.
In the same with the reverse. That whole the video with Paulie of Paulie getting knocked out in a sparring match. First of all, it is strange. This has been brought up on a few other mediums, but who has a referee in a sparring match?
Well, whenever I was, sparring at the gym, George, our trainer, he was always outside of the ring, and he would call stop if there was anything like that. I mean, I don't know why they said that Conor was treating his sparring like they were real fights, like he was going like full speed.
I mean, that could be smart.
That makes sense, because for a guy with 0 professional boxing matches, the only way you're going to get anything close to it is to go 12 rounds and treat it like a real fight. That's the only way he's going to get anything even approximating some degree of experience. So, I mean, that does make sense. He couldn't just go, 12 rounds with a few different guys, no referee in the ring, not getting used to having somebody stepping in between them the way boxing officials do, because if you'll notice, boxing officials put their hands on the fighters a lot more than UFC officials do.
Yeah.
Quite often.
But see, you have... Okay, well, let me finish my thought on how or what kind of advantages Conor has. So his age, his confidence... Also, people, I get this, I don't think anyone's actually came out and said it, probably because they know they'd be wrong, but it does seem like a lot of people, especially boxing purists, they're treating Conor as if he's never boxed a day in his life. But the fact is, boxing was the first combat sport he got into. He was, granted this is kids, but he started boxing at 12 years old and was... I think he was a 2-time youth champion of wherever he competed at, I guess somewhere in Ireland. So he's not coming in with just a strict MMA background. He started with boxing. He got interested in mixed martial arts. I think he's a brown belt in jiu-jitsu, which I know that doesn't matter for a boxing match, but the point is that he's very varied in his knowledge of combat sports, and especially the boxing purists, the boxing fans, talking about McGregor like he has no business being in a boxing ring. The motherfucker started out in a boxing ring. I know it's not to the same caliber as Mayweather, and you shouldn't really compare that to the same caliber of any professional boxer, but I think Conor does have at least the fundamental knowledge, if not the fundamental experience, to compete in professional boxing.
Yeah, I'm actually trying to pull up real quick where I got Floyd's pulled up. I'm trying to pull up Conor's amateur boxing record and see how many he had.
I have no idea. It couldn't have been much because, like I said, he started boxing when he was 12, but he got into mixed martial arts when he was 15, so it wasn't that long.
Oh, that probably wouldn't even be recorded, actually, because that would be a lot of, junior championships and things like that. His record's probably not even recorded. Okay, so I don't know how many fights he's had, but just for that experience thing, I guess we shouldn't talk about Conor like he's never stepped in a boxing ring in his life. I totally get that. But Floyd Mayweather's amateur boxing record is 84-8. Professional record is 49-0. So
I know. My point. I wasn't trying to make the point that is a reason why he could beat Mayweather. That was just a reason to argue with the boxing purists, making it seem like they're talking about him as if he has zero boxing experience. That's all.
Yeah, but I mean, making the high school swim team and being Michael Phelps are two different things.
I know, but I'm just saying. I'm trying to defend him. Because Whatever, man. Whatever.
But I totally get what you're saying, and I mean, but to top all that off, it's just like the experience gap is so wide that Conor's experience is practically zero. He's got some. He's got enough to not be totally clueless, but the experience gap is so wide. Because consider all the training camps for all these professional fights too. How many rounds of sparring on top of all these 12-round fights and professional fights? And you know, I'm sure the stage is not too big for Conor McGregor. It's not. I don't think there is a stage too big for Conor McGregor. Mm-mm. I think, at least, I don't think Conor thinks there is.
No.
And I have no doubt in my mind, I don't have a shadow of doubt in my mind, that Conor McGregor, in his head right now, whatever he's doing right now today, is sitting there thinking that he's going to win this fight. In his head, he's already won this fight. He isn't coming out like a lamb to slaughter to make some money. He wants this, and he believes he can do it. Conor believes it.
And that brings me to the last thing that I think gives Conor an edge versus Mayweather's potential motivation. Conor has said himself, family, friends also say this, is that Conor wholeheartedly believes in himself. And according to him, that is the root of his success, is simply believing in himself. I mean, it's very admirable, but you take someone who has no boxing or fighting skill whatsoever, you just have to think, whatever, man, you're built for this type of thing. What are you talking about? But it's true. I mean, every time, he's been the underdog, he found a way to overcome those odds. And that's his motivation, is that, okay, first of all, he has nothing to lose and everything to gain. If he loses to Mayweather, so what? He loses to the best boxer that's ever lived in a boxing match. So what? But if he wins, oh my God.
Making a heap of money.
But if he wins,
I don't think anybody will have ever been paid as much money to lose as Conor McGregor is about to get paid if he loses.
Right. But see, and that's the thing about Mayweather that's very, choose my words carefully, suspect. I'll just say that. It's suspect because obviously I don't know. But it is rumored that Mayweather did this fight just because of the money, because, he has apparently has IRS issues and things like that. He more or less needs that money. So his motivation to do this isn't to prove anything. It's to make a check. And I think that gives Conor an edge. It gives him that hunger.
Those are all rumors related to related to I got my tongue tangled up there. Related to Floyd's personal finances. I don't know if that stuff's true or not, but
I haven't looked it up. But that's what I keep hearing, so it has to have at least some form of truth.
But it probably does. It probably has a degree of truth. It's probably been blown out of proportion, like most things that hit the tabloids.
Oh, for sure.
So I'm sure it's probably like he's probably got like a minor problem, and this is just some insurance to him. But people are making it sound like he's going to be begging for change if he doesn't have this fight or something. I mean, that's what people make it sound like. People make it sound like he's about to be broke.
Well, think about it.
No way do I think Floyd Mayweather is anywhere near being broke.
Do you have his net worth pulled up? Because I don't.
I don't, but we'll just get that real quick.
Because I think if you were to look at his checks that he writes out to the IRS, any normal person would be like, Jesus Christ, you're giving him that much? Yeah, but look at how much he's worth. I mean, he has to give that much. That's his, his percentage. That's what he pays in taxes.
I mean, he's claimed before that he's got checks he's never cashed. He's claimed that, like, his last few fights, he still hasn't even cashed them yet. But even some of his closest family members have said that this fight is just about, but his nickname isn't Money. His nickname isn't Floyd Money Mayweather for absolutely no reason. Even his closest family members, some are not closest because they haven't got to talk to his dad or Roger about this, but some people in his camp and in his family have said that the motivation for this fight is purely money. And they've said whether he needs it or not, but he wants it.
Of course.
And that's really the motivation for McGregor too. It's just that McGregor doesn't get to. He's not already there. He's already got a lot of money, but he's not where Floyd is. Floyd's building an empire.
Oh God, no! McGregor's not even. I can't. I don't know the words to use. McGregor's not even near that level of wealth.
Floyd's net worth as of late 2016, Forbes estimate is $340 million.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I don't think he's hurting. And that's probably not considering what some of his, stakes in the money team and other athletes. See, at this point, he's a promoter, not just a fighter. He's got fighters fighting under his banner, fighting, he's got guys in the UFC that fight under the money team. Jon Jones, which we'll probably be talking about him today too.
Oh, for sure.
Because he's hit the news too. But Jon Jones was rumored to have been invited to be a part of TMT after the Daniel Cormier win. So I mean, he's got fighters that aren't even part of the UFC that are part of that money team. Renan Barão was also part of it. If I've got my fighter right from the UFC, so he's got his fingers in promotion and in other fighters. So do I think Floyd was doing this to keep the roof over his head? Hell no. Do I think Floyd was doing this because he smelled a massive paycheck? Absolutely. I mean, it's a fight nicknamed the $1 billion fight. And by the time they're done with pay-per-view buys, it might get there between the two of them. And especially between what some other people make. Maybe
he just wants that 50. He wants that 50-0 record.
If he really wanted that 50, I think he'd give Manny Pacquiao a rubber match. That's what I think, if he really wanted the 50.
Yeah, but see, that fight was so bad.
Or give Canelo a rubber match.
That fight was so bad, though. Like, the Pacquiao fight, I heard somewhere the pay-per-views were super low for that, and plus it was just a bad fight.
No one will buy it. The pay-per-views were pretty solid. I mean, and that fight, I watched it. I left a rock concert early to watch that, actually. I left day one of Carolina Rebellion that year early to watch that fight. And I regret it, and I wouldn't have done it if I had known that Manny Pacquiao was about to fight that fight with a hurt left shoulder. If I had known that going into that fight, I wouldn't have watched it because I would know what it was going to look like then. Because Floyd wouldn't know his left shoulder's hurt, so he's going to keep his defensive game plan up. Well, with his left shoulder hurt, Manny can't push the pace, so now nobody's pushing the pace. And that's really what went down that fight. Nobody was pushing the pace.
Okay, I need to correct myself real quick. I looked up the pay-per-views for the Mayweather-Pacquiao fight. It apparently broke a record. Now, granted, this is 2015, obviously, but it was 4.6 million pay-per-view buys with $400 million revenue. So I don't know where I heard that, or I may have mistaken something.
You're probably thinking of his last fight of his career. He fought one more time after Manny Pacquiao. He fought Berto.
Oh, okay.
And Berto, nobody had any interest in that fight. There wasn't enough hype around Berto, and the Pacquiao fight left such a sour taste in people's mouths that they didn't really feel like shelling out, Mayweather level pay-per-view buy money to watch it. So that's the fight. And I was thinking that, but I didn't want to call that and be wrong. So I just Googled it.
Yeah, but see, I mean, the point still stands is that the Pacquiao fight wasn't entertaining at all. I mean, even true boxing experts and fans were saying that it wasn't a great fight. So if they did another fight with Pacquiao, I don't think they'd get any money for it.
Well, I mean, if you ask me as a boxing fan, who I would have wanted to see Floyd Mayweather fight to get his 50, because I mean here's the thing: if he wins this, he's gonna get to break Rocky Marciano's undefeated record, going 49-0 to 50-0. But you can put an asterisk right beside that because Conor McGregor is not a boxer. He's about to try, but in my mind, if this goes the way I think it's going to go, and I'll touch on that in a sec. If this goes the way I think it's going to go, then you can put an asterisk beside that 50 because the last one is not over a boxer. But in my mind, if I could choose someone as a boxing fan, I would have him have a rematch with Canelo Alvarez because Canelo's lost only one fight in his entire career. That's to Floyd Mayweather.
That was a good fight, though.
It was, and here's the thing. Canelo is a lot more experienced now. He's got some major wins under his cap. Yeah. Big time wins now. And I really think that as from a boxing standpoint, and I guarantee you that fight wouldn't have made anywhere near the money that this fight's going to make. It wouldn't have generated anywhere near the hype that this fight's going to generate. And that goes to the point that sometimes the things that sell the best aren't actually the things that from a purist standpoint would actually be the best.
Yeah.
I mean, I could be eating these words. A week from now, I could be eating these words. This could turn out to be an absolute war, but I don't think so.
Well,
and
as someone who is not a boxing expert, I'm not an MMA expert. I'm strictly just fans of both. I think that, first of all, if it goes the distance, if it goes all the 12 rounds, Mayweather wins hands down. I don't think Conor, with however prep time he needs, I don't think he can outbox Mayweather.
I think if it goes past 5 rounds, it's going to 12 rounds. I definitely don't see Conor getting past round 8 without being gassed, unless his cardio is fabulously improved from what we've seen in MMA.
I've read somewhere that that's a lot of what he's working on is his conditioning and cardio.
Yeah, so I mean, unless it's majorly improved, I see him being gassed in round 8.
Possibly. I mean, the most he's ever gone is 5, so.
And gassing out, I mean, he gassed out on Nate Diaz in round 2, the fight that he lost. And he was gassed, but so was Nate.
Right.
And basically the entire latter half of that fight versus Nate, they were both gassed. So from the boxing career standpoint, the fight I would like to see, if he's going to break Rocky Marciano's record, I would like to see him give the more experienced, more seasoned Canelo Alvarez, because Canelo has said that he feels like the only reason he lost that fight was the experience gap. And now he's locked up a lot more experience. And I'm not sure that Canelo is wrong, because Canelo is an awesome fighter. So
the dude's young too. What is he? Mid-20s?
I think it's late 20s now.
Late 20s?
I think so. But it's that's the fight I would like to see from a boxing standpoint. However, of course, I want to see this thing. It's a total. At times, it almost looks like it's devolved into a sideshow with some of the press conference, but that's what they want. They want it to look like this. They want it to look like it's out of control, like that it's difficult to keep Conor from just beating him up on the stage. But it's actually not difficult to keep Conor from beating him up on the stage, because Conor's not an idiot. He knows that looks like a lawsuit, and it looks like he's not making any money. He's not an idiot.
Yeah.
And that is another side of this thing that could be a little mental for Floyd. If this was a street fight, Conor will mop him.
Of course.
And this is another thing. Like, that doesn't bode well mentally for a guy. But at the same time, I don't think that's going to faze Floyd as far as, once he hears that bell ring and he's, standing in a place that, frankly, he's the king of right now. And has been for years. There hasn't been anybody like him.
Right.
And I look at this, when I reach past the hype, I look at what Mayweather brings to the table as a boxer, and what McGregor brings to the table as a boxer. And McGregor, there's a whole bunch of question marks, but
exactly,
we've seen his striking in MMA, and if any of those habits, like if he gets tired and some of those habits start to come out, because habits are hard to break, man, they really are. Like, breaking a habit, as far as something you do. When you get tired, you settle into routines. What
habits are you referring to? Because, I mean, it's a completely different sport. So what happened?
It is a completely different sport, but his strikes, if he starts to throw some of the more open type MMA strikes, for example, one of the ones I can really think of is his straight left. It's a thunderous punch. I'm not taking anything away from it, but from a boxing standpoint, if he doesn't keep that a lot tighter than he keeps it in the MMA world, it's going to get countered every single time he throws it, because it comes from way back.
It reaches really far.
It ends up with him fully extended, and he's even bent down somewhat. Like, it's like, if I had to show somebody a picture of what an overextended punch looks like, that's pretty much an overextended punch. But in MMA, it's okay, because there's other things he could do to follow that. There's other things he can do to set that up, to open that window. If he throws an overextended punch like that in boxing, first of all, you're not going to hit Floyd Mayweather with that shot. It takes too long to develop. If he tries to throw it where it's going to land out all the way at that distance, it takes too long to develop. He's not going to hit Floyd with that.
Well, in that video with Paulie, didn't he catch him with that left straight?
He kind of does, but we also can't compare Paulie to Floyd Mayweather because he's been retired for over a year, and I know Floyd's been retired for 2, but Paulie wasn't training prior to this. Paulie was not training. Paulie came in to help him. Like you can see in that video, Paulie's out of shape. And he admits that's during the 12th round where Paulie admits he was gassed. And
Conor looked pretty amazing to be in round 12.
Mm-hmm. And that's one of the encouraging things for Conor is that he didn't look gassed there. But also, I guarantee you Paulie's not going to put the pressure on him that Mayweather's going to. Because a lot of people act like Mayweather just runs. If you pay attention, Mayweather does not run.
No, he lures you.
He constantly repositions, yes, but he doesn't just run from you. He will actually stand right in your range and counter the things you do and set you up for his stuff and then be gone whenever you move back to counter him, which is exhausting. So Mayweather actually, he puts a lot of pressure on guys by staying constantly engaged with them and then disengaging briefly right when they're about to press their offense and then re-engaging them whenever he's on top again. He doesn't just run. And people that act like he's just moving away from people all the time, they've never. When I hear someone say that, I don't think they've ever watched Floyd Mayweather actually fight.
The thought that I get when watching his fights is, no, he's not running, he's luring them. It's like stringing along a cat with a toy. It's like, come here, come get it, come get it, come get it. And when they try to get it, boom, counter, or he just moves out of the way. And that's one of the things that we were talking about in our text, is that he frustrates fighters to the point that they make mistakes, and he punishes those mistakes.
And he's great with feints. He's got a right shoulder feint that watching him fight, I'm sure you've seen it. He's got this thing where like he'll take a step back, and then as you come in, he'll feint his right shoulder, and he'll start to dip his right shoulder like he's going to throw his right hand, and then he'll watch what you do in anticipation to it. And he'll give you that throughout the entire fight to see how you're changing what you're going to do to his right hand. And then he'll alter where he's going to throw it from or what he's going to hit you with based on what he sees that you want to do whenever he feints you. And his mental game is miles ahead of probably almost every boxer that's ever lived. Almost. There's a handful that belong in a pantheon of greats that their mental game is on that level.
Yeah, fighters that have fought him have said those words, is that he gets inside your head. And
yeah, and I mean this is one of the things I really wanted to mention, and I gave it to you wrong yesterday, but his landing percentage. All right, Floyd lands 46% of the punches that he throws, which is an absolutely ridiculous number. There's only 2 that have ever bested that number. That's Joe Louis and Lennox Lewis. And even crazier than that, though, Mayweather's opponent's landing percentage, career, 16%. It's the lowest ever recorded in CompuBox's boxing stats.
Yeah,
that's pretty much the best. That's pretty much the best compilation of boxing stats you can find is CompuBox. But and that is a 30% gap. That is also the largest gap between any. So like while the 2 Lewises, Joe Louis and Lennox Lewis, totally not related, totally different eras for people who don't know, who might be listening, that 30% difference is also a record.
Yeah.
So that's insane. That proves what's been said about him, that he is the greatest defensive fighter and counterpuncher. And that's not the guy you want to have your boxing debut against, because you're going to make mistakes.
Unless you're a crazy Irishman that has something to prove.
Yeah, well, I mean, Conor's insane. Conor, I have a feeling that like
he's so fucking crazy.
I have a feeling that like somehow if Conor could be dropped off at the foot of Mount Everest in swim trunks, he'd be like, "I got this." I mean, I feel like his confidence.
Hold my beer, lad! I got this.
God, walking past dead people. Who the fuck is that guy?
Who the fuck?
I really do think. I mean, his level of confidence borders on insane.
But it works, man.
And he is gifted. But it's just one of these things where, like, I look at the different moves that Mayweather has that are so practiced, that are so precise. And he also supposedly all the leaks out of his camp and stuff claim that he plans on switching stances. That takes a lot of energy in boxing.
Who, Conor?
Conor, yeah. He plans on switching stances back and forth on him and trying to be a little unorthodox. Well, that's cool and all, but that's not going to do anything to a guy who's seen as much stuff as Mayweather. He's seen it all. What are you going to show him that he hasn't seen? You're going to have to go to his world and best him, which means, really, in my mind, one of two things for Conor, and that's either a big shot early. And I think it's got to come early because
it has to be the perfect shot, man. It has to be so perfect.
To figure him out. And that's the thing. Landing flush and landing solid on Floyd is so hard that I can only think of maybe 4 or 5 times in his entire career that he's been caught and really caught, where that there was no glance to it, no head movement, no anything, just caught clean. Shane Mosley's one of those times. That's the most famous time. That's one almost everybody knows about. I'm sure you've seen the Mosley fight.
Oh, of course. But a lot of those, I noticed that when I watch his older fights, like even back when he was Pretty Boy Mayweather, he hadn't quite developed that fortress defense style. He got rocked a couple times, but the more recent you get, the more it's like he's not getting hit. If his face is touched, is by a glance jab or whatever it is, because he moved out of the way and has already hit the other guy.
Yeah, how many fights do you see of his that go 12 rounds and they're calling the decision, the opponent's face is swollen up and bloody, and Floyd looks like he just got done skipping rope for 12 rounds, and that's how clean his face is.
Yeah.
And how he's sweating, he's wearing boxing trunks, but he don't look like he's been in a fight. Other guy looks like he's been in a fight. Floyd doesn't.
That shoulder must be fucked up, though.
Yeah, he gives people the way he gives people that shoulder roll, and he also gives people just these glancing shots that they don't really do anything. Like when you see him caught to the head, half the time he's moving away from that shot anyway, and it's kind of a glancing blow. It's
barely really feels it.
So he's going to have to do something to get through that, and he's going to have to do it with little to no boxing experience. He's going to have to deal with Floyd's counter game, which is going to surprise him. It's going to surprise him because when you watch the stand-up between him and Nate Diaz, of course there's some kicks involved, which changes some of the ranges and stuff, but you see him get countered by Nate. And Nate Diaz is a good boxer in the MMA world. If he had chosen boxing as a career and really dedicated himself to it, I think he could have made it as a boxer too. But Nate Diaz he's not Floyd Mayweather. And he said that himself. He said, one of the things he was asked about, he said, well, I caught him. And he said, and I'm not Floyd Mayweather, if I've got the right interview, because he's going to have to do something to deal with that counter game. And I don't know what you can do to deal with that counter game coming from his level of experience, because Oscar De La Hoya has tried to find an answer to that counter game. Mm-hmm. Great boxer. One of the very best boxers of all time.
Oh, yeah. I love watching him.
Miguel Cotto. Mm-hmm. One of the best. One of the absolute best. No answer.
Still couldn't do it.
Got absolutely wrecked. Canelo Alvarez. Great fighter. He was knocking... His knockouts... I don't have it up in front of me, but it's something like there's only like 14 or 15 out of his 40 fights that he hasn't knocked out his opponent. So ridiculous knockout percentage, very heavy hands for a guy in his weight class. Great boxer. He didn't have an answer for it. Manny Pacquiao might have had an answer if he was healthy, but we will never know.
I mean, I might be wrong, obviously, because I just watched the fight. I don't know what was going on inside of Alvarez's head. But it looked like by the third or fourth round, he was already starting to get frustrated. So he got frustrated pretty early on, and I just, again,
Floyd claims he rocked him. Canelo's never admitted that, but Floyd claims that one of those shots in round 2 rocked him.
Round 2.
I believe it's either round 2 or 3. There's a shot early on. It lands pretty flush. It's a hard counter right to Canelo's face, and I think that's the punch that Floyd claims kind of hurt him. And watching that fight back, I should have timestamped it. But watching that fight back after that shot, you do see a marked difference in Canelo's level of aggression and precision.
I remember Mayweather catching him a couple times.
Yeah, and there's one that lands just perfect. There's one that lands perfect. And so
well, anyway, that could have been due to inexperience, him getting frustrated like that. But yeah, that was my point, is that he got frustrated early on. And if Conor gets frustrated early on, he is completely fucked.
Yeah, and he's gonna take more shots to the body in this fight than he's probably ever taken in his career too, because several of Floyd's counters, especially when facing a taller fighter, he's going to send some counters to the body. He's going to sink that straight right into Conor's body a few times. Yeah. Which everybody who's ever fought him claims his body's soft, but we'll see.
I don't know. I saw a clip of his training where he's doing leg lifts while someone's just beating the fuck out of his stomach.
I was reading a boxing science article that was like examining his core strength and all that, and they were talking about how like his waist, the way it tapers and everything in his midsection, he's actually built more like a model and less like a fighter in the midsection, because most fighters are built thicker in the middle. They still have all the muscle and stuff, and they look, really trim, but they're thicker. It's more of a trunk than it is abs.
I could see that, but you also have to think about muscle structure, how wide the abdominal muscles are. He could just have narrow ab muscles or whatever. But yeah, I could definitely see that.
It's one of those things where that analysis fit in with people claiming that he really does not like getting hit in the body and that he doesn't weather body shots as well as he weathers a shot to the head. The analysis is one of those things where I wouldn't have brought it up solo, but it kind of ties in with what people who've sparred him and all this are saying about whenever he gets hit in the body. It ties in.
Yeah.
So looking at that and just looking at the techniques and the defense, like, there's no way in my mind you could convince me to put money on Conor.
Plus, another thing is this one detail. It's small, but it's significant. He's a southpaw, and whether it's MMA or boxing, how an orthodox, a right-handed stance fighter fights a southpaw, or their weakness is to move to their left. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So, and the reason why I worry about that is just because anytime I see, now, again, this is UFC, we obviously don't know, but in UFC, when fighters are trying to do that to Conor, trying to go over to that weak side, Conor's right side, Conor tries to catch them with a spinning kick or a spinning back fist, something that's very illegal in boxing. So I worry on how he's going to deal with that movement.
He's going to have to replace that with trying to catch them with his right jab or right hook.
And I don't think he could do that with Mayweather.
And he's got a good right hook. He's got a great right hook, actually. But the thing is, Floyd's going to expect those two punches.
Right.
And those could very easily be countered with, Floyd's own right hand, or countered with any number of shots, because Floyd loves to take and also follow an opponent's jab back in with his power hand. Well, in this case, that'll be inverse because Conor will be coming from the left. If I'm Conor, I'm not switching stances on him, because the southpaw thing is one of the best advantages you've got. Because if he switches back around to the right-hand stance and starts throwing jabs that aren't quite maybe as good as his jabs are going to be from his left-hand stance,
yeah.
If he does that, one of Floyd's favorite moves, and it's in basically the basics of what Roger Mayweather teaches students of his that go amateur. He sometimes uses the shoulder roll and then just follows it back with his right hand, but he's also got a move called a pull, which is where he just kind of like does like this tiniest slide back with his right foot, steps and leans back, pulling his chin down behind his right glove.
I know exactly. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, and I was trying to describe it for anybody who hasn't seen it. But as he
does it a lot. Just watch any fight, basically.
Yeah, if you watch a fight with him, you're going to see it inside of 2 rounds. Probably inside of 1 round.
That's the scariest thing about jabbing against Mayweather, is that he's so quick and so quick reflexed that if you...
And it really is. It's a thing Roger teaches pretty much all of his fighters, but Floyd's better at it than anybody I've ever seen. And then he takes it, he literally follows your jab back with his right hand.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say.
He lands a power shot for your little probing jab. He takes a power shot from you for it.
You're trying to fill out his space and his timing with your jab, trying to get him a little bit off balance, whatever. Nope, he's going to punish that with a right straight. And that makes you not want to jab anymore. It makes you think twice.
And once you put the jab away,
you're done.
And Floyd's jab is nothing to sneeze at either. Floyd's jab is so quick. It seems like his jab seems like it's moving at like a thought level. Like it's just pop. It is there. It's a scoring strike. It's not a hard jab, but it's very there, and it's the kind of strike that can cut a guy. So I mean, look, just looking at this on paper from the actual boxing standpoint of it, taking all the hype, all the media out of it, I don't see how Conor wins. I just don't, and it's so crazy to me that he's been able to convince people that he can. And it would be amazing if he won. It would be amazing to have to actually like sit down and go, how? How did he do that? How did he overcome all of this stuff? Because all this stuff that we're talking about right now, even if it doesn't work out the way I'm talking about, is completely legitimate. This is completely legitimate actual analysis of how this fight should go. So if it doesn't go this way, then he's the prodigy he claims to be.
Yeah, it'll be insane, man. I mean,
I don't know how much bigger his ego could possibly grow, but
if
he wins this fight, if he wins this fight, and have you seen the picture of the belt they made for this fight?
I haven't.
Oh my god!
What do I need to look up?
Just call it just Mayweather McGregor belt, and it should come round up. There's pictures all over of it. The thing has got. Let me find the article actually, because it's something like it's like.
Oh my god! 3,360 diamonds.
Hold on, keep going.
It's loading. Hold on. 3 pounds of gold. Oh my god. How much is this worth?
I don't know, and the belt itself took one full crocodile and is made out of Italian crocodile leather.
Oh my, I see that now. Oh my, dude.
It's also got rubies and emeralds in it too.
Oh my, dude. That's a sick belt, man.
I mean, the Lannisters couldn't even afford this thing, for God's sake. I mean, what is this?
Oh my god. Yeah, it says right here they commissioned a special emerald belt when Floyd fought Pacquiao, which was valued at $1 million. They're not giving. I'm not seeing what this one is valued at.
Maybe they don't want somebody to try to steal it.
They're going to have that shit locked up. No one's getting that. Let's see. That's
absolutely. But could you imagine Conor on Instagram with that belt the day after that fight, walking around with it? Could you imagine that?
I mean, if I had that belt, I would never take it off. Let's see.
I don't know how much Conor loves belts. So
3.3 pounds of 24 karat gold, 3,360 diamonds, 600 sapphires, and 160 emeralds. And the strap is made, like you said, crocodile leather. Jesus.
And apparently it took like one full crocodile skin to do it. Or hide. But yeah, okay, so that's a legit thing right there. That's what they made for this fight. If Conor gets to wear that thing,
we get tired of seeing it, man. We'd see it all the time.
I don't know how big his ego could how much bigger his ego could possibly grow. But if he gets that belt, I think we find out.
Jesus. I mean, there is the rumor that, I don't know if it's a rumor, he said it, that he's going to, after this fight, he's going to continue doing MMA and boxing.
He even talked about opening possibly like some kind of new hybrid promotion that has like elements of MMA and elements of boxing. And like he said that, like, by the way, he said that like a foot away from Dana White, and the look on Dana's face is priceless.
Well, first of all, what would it even be? MMA is everything, pretty much. It's basically kickboxing with jiu-jitsu and wrestling.
I'm thinking maybe like submission taken out. Like maybe the ground game will be centered more around ground and pound. They might open up. All we could do is speculate on that. I don't know what he's gonna do.
So kickboxing with ground and pounds, all right, or Muay Thai with ground and pound.
Well, I mean, doesn't something like that pretty much kind of already exist? I don't know the name of it, but I think a sport that's essentially Muay Thai and they're allowed to go on the ground already exists. So I'm not really sure what he plans on doing differently from that. Maybe just attaching his name to it. But also, Conor just said shit sometimes.
Yeah, I'm sure he's not serious at all about that.
I mean, I think the only thing he'd have to add new to combat sports, as far as I can think of, would be his name being on top of it. But at this point, he doesn't
need to be a promoter. He's 29 years old. He needs to fight, man. He needs to. I mean, I don't want to tell him what to do. Obviously, it's his body and his future, but I don't think he should be a promoter. I think he'd be good at it. I mean, he's a fucking hype master, but
I don't think Conor could promote anyone other than himself. Conor is the master of self-promotion. I don't know if Conor could hype up another fighter the way he hypes up himself.
Dude, his promoter must have the easiest job, or not his promoter, his manager must have the easiest job ever.
Yeah, just hand him a microphone and
and
let
collect
him go.
just hand him a microphone and collect a paycheck. I don't have to do shit.
I mean, he's so good at talking. He's so silver-tongued. He got out of slipping out, calling Mayweather a monkey once. He got it, he just and said he was joking and that his race jokes didn't work, and everybody just forgot about it. He's that silver-tongued.
He also said, what did he say? Something along the lines of "dance boy" or something like that.
Dance for me, boy. That's what he said to Mayweather. And that's actually the comment they didn't think was racist. And then he said something on an interview. He said "dancing monkeys," and I was like, "Ah, shit, here we go." And I thought that was going to be me shitstorm when I heard that, right?
Yeah, but
I just rolled off their back because it's obvious. I doubt Conor has a damn clue what's going on in this country right now as far as racial tension. Conor don't know.
He probably doesn't care if he did.
Conor's he'd probably care enough to not say that if he did. He'd probably be like, all right, the press for that could be bad and that could cost me money, so I won't say it.
I don't know. I just don't think he cares. I don't think he cares.
But really, the reality of it is he's just being himself and ripping at every corner he can, and he's completely unaware of how sensitive that is in America right now.
He called the Showtime executive a fucking weasel to his face. The guy who is giving you money to fight on Showtime, you called a fucking weasel. Conor does what the fuck Conor wants to do.
Yeah, he just... I mean... God, this guy, man. It's I mean, he showed up to a press conference in no shirt and a mink coat.
Polar bear.
It wasn't a polar bear. I don't know if it's mink. I don't know what it was. It's some kind of fur. And then calls for
turn up the AC.
To turn up the AC in there because he's not taking it off and he does what the fuck he wants. And, he just says that. And he just says that. And everybody's like, well, yeah, I guess you do because I don't see anybody stopping you. So, but the other thing is, I think that's just something he spat out as an idea because he also talked about a trilogy match with Nate. Because he's in an interview, he said it just today, so you may not have seen it.
I would love to see a third fight.
He said also he could potentially have a trilogy fight waiting on him. And that's actually what I think he's going to do, and it's what I thought he was going to do post-Mayweather. Anyway, because, first of all, I think what he's going to do changes if he wins. If he actually wins, I bet he keeps boxing because there's more money in boxing. But
I mean, he said he's going to do both. So I mean, I would keep, if I beat the best boxer to ever exist ever, I would want to keep doing that, especially if there's more money in it.
Oh, there's so much more money in it. And the way he'd be able to promote himself after he beat Floyd Mayweather, he'd make even more money than Floyd Mayweather. And
for sure,
if he had that opportunity, he'd stay in boxing. But what's likely going to happen is he's going to lose, most likely. The Vegas odds makers are on my side there, and I think
is it 4-1 right now?
I thought it was worse than that.
Last I heard, it was 4-1.
That's amazing. He's managed to talk his way into 4-1 odds. That's amazing. Because they opened up something like 6.
I could have just made that up. I just heard that somewhere. I don't know. I didn't read it anywhere. I was told that.
Oh, okay. But I had read 16-1 at one point, but that was months ago. So he might have been able to talk his way through that. But Vegas did odds on that fight before it was announced, just to see what. I think they were just teasing interest. But
yeah,
Anyways, the trilogy fight with Nate is what I thought he was most likely going to do, because this is me thinking he's probably going to lose this match with Floyd.
I mean, and surely that's what he's...
If he loses it, he's probably going to head back to the UFC, which is the most likely thing for him to do. And then what's the fight that would pay him the most money right now?
Diaz.
Trilogy fight with Nate. That's the fight everybody wants to see. Everybody wants to see him and Nate break that 1-1.
Well, see, I thought there was whispers of that before the idea of fighting Mayweather was like a real thing. Like, because Conor turned down a bunch of fights because he said he was training for Mayweather, and this is before Mayweather agreed.
Yeah, that's pretty much what happened. He also had said that he was going to take a break a few months after his son was born, which is a cool thing to do, logical thing to do.
Right.
Be home for a little bit. Don't just be like, all right, cool, got a son. Here I go, off, bye.
I mean, he just won.
He just beat Eddie Alvarez.
Yeah, Alvarez.
He just won the lightweight title.
Yeah, so, I mean...
Here's a question. Will he ever defend it? Will Conor ever defend any title he wins?
Oh, for sure.
He hasn't yet. He has not defended once.
I mean, he will. I mean, that's part of the deal of being champion, is being fit to defend.
Well, I mean, that's part of the deal, but I mean, look at this. Jose Aldo lost that fight to McGregor, and they had to make an interim belt for that while he was off doing the 2 matches with Diaz. They had to make an interim belt for that division because the champion wasn't there to defend it. You see, I'm of the mind that no matter who you are, if you're not here to defend your belt, you get stripped, and we crown a new champion, not an interim champion, a new champion. Because, and I get that gets into the term paper champion, but if the champion's not going to defend the belt, then you need a new champion.
Yeah, but see, especially nowadays, this could be a long time thing. This is just, as far as I'm aware of it, or I've had that feeling. Combat sports, in a way, it's like pro wrestling. I mean, they don't always go after, number one contender does the title fight or the champion defends his title. They go after the matches that make money. And that's why he fought Diaz.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, Floyd's let a ton of belts go in his career. He's been stripped a few times. But you see, that happens in boxing all the time because you've got multiple different officiating branches that have title belts for the same weight class. You could have the WBO and the WBC have 2 different opponents they want Floyd to fight. And if he fights one, he's losing that belt. If they don't agree basically on like who the number one contender is, he could be defending against somebody that they're like, well, we're not putting our belt up for that fight. So in boxing, it's really easy to get stripped. It's actually hard to unify titles and keep unified titles in boxing because there's so many of them.
To someone who isn't an avid boxing fan, I like boxing, but I don't love it. To me, it just seems like that whole process of champion and how he defends it and who he defends it to, it seems really overly complicated.
Well, I mean, it's supposed to take into account your record, who that record is against, how many wins you've got together in a row. Like, are you on like a really hot streak? Like if you put together 9 wins in a row, and depending on, it could be 3 wins in a row if they're against the right people, then you could be worthy of a title shot. In the UFC, it seems to be like, does Dana White think you get a title shot?
Yeah, that is one thing I don't like.
And that's
makes some money though.
Like, it does make money, and it's kind of interesting to see that he can basically decide if it's title time for a guy or not title time for a guy. Like, I mean, Conor's rise to the title fight was meteoric. It was fast, very fast. I mean, part of that is how well Conor sells himself. Part of that is how well Conor sells himself and the dominant fashion he was winning in. Yeah. He wasn't just winning. These weren't close matches. He was just going out there and just steamrolling dudes. And then, that's when they're like, okay, maybe we need to put you in a title fight because clearly our mid-rank competition is beneath you.
Yeah, but see, then you have the debate of, do you make him prove that by fighting those guys? I mean, that just takes up more time, more money, and you lose potential money because during the time that he's trying to prove himself, that could be a number of years. He could be in his early to mid 30s before he actually gets a title fight. Who knows? I'm just throwing a number out. But yeah, I mean, I guess if you have faith in him, give him a shot. But,
well, I mean, winning the title and being a great champion clearly does not make you money. It clearly does not make you a big draw. Because if it did, the biggest draw in the UFC would be Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson. And that guy, he's one of the most talented fighters I've ever seen. I wish that dude with that skill set weighed 50 more pounds.
15?
50.
Jesus.
Because I wish that dude with that skill set was 50 pounds heavier. I wish he was in a division that people gave a shit about so that they'd watch him.
Yeah, I think the only reason they care about that division is because of Mighty Mouse.
But he's in a division that's just frankly not getting watched. And he's fighting good guys, but these guys, they're really good fighters, but then they get to him and they look like nobodies because he's on like a level that like nobody is at in his division. And when there's just pure dominance, that's not as entertaining as when you've got like a true struggle. And the other thing is Demetrius has kind of a muted personality. He doesn't
just shows up in fights.
Yeah, he just shows up in fights. He doesn't do a lot to hype this stuff out. He just is. He's basically the classical definition of a champion and a contender, and he's a very classy guy. But
I think that says a lot about how skilled Mighty Mouse is. Even the casual UFC fan, they might not know the name Demetrius Johnson, but they know the name Mighty Mouse. Mighty Mouse doesn't hype himself up too much. He fights in a weight class that's not popular, but everyone still knows who Mighty Mouse is, and I think that says a lot about his talent.
Absolutely. It's kind of mind-blowing to me that he doesn't get more credit and more money, but you get money for what you sell.
Exactly.
And he doesn't do that, promoting thing and selling fights and all that. In a world that I think should be, more of a meritocracy, but, I think that a guy who's winning like that, a guy who his next title defense will break Anderson Silva's record.
Really?
Yeah, his next title
right.
defense will break Anderson Silva's record.
Dude, that should get a lot of views.
And they're trying to, and last I heard, they were trying to get like TJ or somebody to try to cut weight all the way down to there to do it. Somebody like notable and big name that they can sell. Yeah, TJ Dillashaw. But I don't know if TJ can cut that low.
No, I don't think he can do that. He probably could. I don't think he should. I should clarify.
They offered kind of a catch weight between the two of them, and Mighty Mouse wasn't interested. He wanted to defend his belt again. He wasn't interested in doing a catch weight just to fight TJ.
Yeah.
And that again says something about him. He's like really proud of being a champion, and he wants to defend. He doesn't want to do a catch weight fight against a big name for money. I mean, I don't know how big of a name most people think TJ is, but I think TJ's a big name. I like TJ quite a bit, actually.
I think for the casual fan, you might not know exactly who he is. You might have heard the name Dillashaw before, but yeah, I mean, he's an excellent fighter.
I mean, the demolition of Brandon Barao definitely made a name for him. No doubt about that.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Twice.
Yeah.
So picking Barao apart like that. That's no small game. I mean, Barao was a killer. Everybody thought TJ had no chance when he took that fight.
Really?
Yeah, everybody thought TJ had no chance. I don't remember what the betting odds on it, but he was something like a 14-1 underdog or something.
Oh shit! I didn't know that.
He wasn't supposed to have that shot yet. I forget who Barao was supposed to fight, but that person got injured in camp. Mm-hmm. And if I remember right, TJ had something like 2 months to get ready for Barao. And
that's right.
TJ was already training for somebody else.
Yeah.
Well, he said yes to that fight, and pretty much nobody gave him a chance. So like, all right, another lamb to Brandon Barao slaughter.
Yeah, I remember that.
Sure enough, he comes out there with that stance switching and that different style that Barao hadn't seen. He gave Barao something he hadn't seen.
Yeah,
and he beat him. And then he proved it wasn't a fluke. So it's one of these things where, I mean, that's a guy who took the shot because it was there, and nobody gave that dude a chance. I'm one of the few people, I mean, not trying to brag on myself, I'm one of the few people that really thought he had a chance just because I already knew who he was. And I was like, ooh, this is really interesting. And my worry was that he got the shot too early. I was like, oh man, I hope he didn't get the shot before he was ready. Because I knew he had like the talent, but I was just hoping that he wouldn't get that shot before he was ready and then get beat and then not get the shot again for a really long time. So I was kind of on the edge of my seat going like, oh, come on, don't lose this, man. You're good enough to win this fight, but are you ready for it?
Yeah. I mean, that's a perfect example of obviously don't listen to the odds. I mean,
yeah, it's one of those things where, like, in the moment, and seriously not placing a bet on that fight and Holly Holm versus Ronda Rousey are my two biggest regrets, is not actually betting on those two fights.
I was not confident enough to bet on Rousey, but I was confident enough in McGregor Diaz too. I should have bet money on that one because I kept hearing from everyone that Diaz was going to win again. I'm like, bullshit, McGregor's going to do it. But
I mean, I wish I put like a Vegas odds bet on those two because they both had heavy odds, and I think it's because people didn't quite understand. Like, I mean, really, Holm was Rousey's first like elite striker, true elite striker, like just someone who not. And I'm not downplaying the striking of people that she fought before, but Holly was a boxing champion and a kickboxing champion. Her striking was on another level. She was a champion in two different sports. And I think people who were going like, oh, she's just going to come out there and kill her. I don't think they were paying attention to where Holly came from, that Holly was going to have that. And there was a sparring clip before that fight of her doing like some sparring with Jon Jones. And I saw her like using like his elbow and stuff. And I was like, oh, shit. And I was like, she's ready.
Yeah, but you see, when
those two, I wish I bet on those.
Rousey was like the first big female fighter star in UFC, and with the volume of hype that came for her, honestly, I mean, I watched that fight because of Rousey. I had no idea who Holly Holm was. I believe you told me about her history, and I was like, this might be interesting. And that's pretty much that's pretty much as far as my interest got with it. I honestly expected her to do exactly what Rousey did to everyone else. But that was one of those holy shit moments in UFC history.
Yeah, that was, and it's kind of fun to remember back to watching that fight because I watched that fight at the actual Buffalo Wild Wings, and I came out of my seat because like I had an idea in my head that it might happen, but then like even having thought that it might happen, I wasn't confident enough to put money on it, and then whenever it did happen, I was just coming out of my seat. I was just like, this is nuts. Because that's literally how I pictured it in my head, is that she would show her how hard it can be to take down an elite striker with good takedown defense. That she wasn't going to, and Holly didn't do something crazy like run at her or do something reckless. She just spaced her out and, kickboxed her and made her go outside of her comfort zone, like Rousey had done to everybody else. She'd taken everybody else out of their comfort zone. Yeah. And then somebody took her out of hers. And that defeat was so much it messed up Ronda's head. She's never been the same. Yeah. And that defeat was huge. That's the kind of defeat that can take a fighter's heart. And
I don't think that took that might have been the first nail in the coffin, but the last nail in the coffin was definitely the Nunes fight.
Oh yeah, because she came right back. The UFC hyped her like that she was just coming back to take what was hers. Amanda Nunes is nothing. She's just gonna walk her right over. And then she got wrecked.
I felt bad for her in that fight. I was just like, oh man, that sucks. She's gone. She's definitely gone now.
Yeah, I thought it was crazy for the UFC to take and hype up the returning fighter more than their own champion, but
get more buys.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. It's the name, it's the selling stuff thing, but I guess I shouldn't say I don't get it because I was hype as hell to see Jon Jones come back. And well, we see how that's going right now.
One fight, okay. This is obviously fresh news. I think as of this recording, it was 2 days ago this came out.
Is that right? 2 days ago, the first TMZ report of the Jon Jones failed drug test.
Now, he tested positive a year ago for UFC 200. He was supposed to fight DC in that one as well. He tested positive for 2 different banned substances that he claimed was from gas station dick pills, basically.
Yeah, or like tainted Cialis. Like it said, like that's basically the claim is that it was, to help him get a boner. Which, by the way, I don't buy that. I don't buy that at all.
Contaminated stuff.
They tested his. I thought that was a different fighter. I'm getting on a different person. But, like, he claimed it was basically from, like, some male virility stuff, and I'm going like, are you really telling me that at the time, I think 29, 28 year old elite level athlete needs gas station tick pills? You telling me that's real?
Well, that was definitely him, and he said it himself that that's where those banned substances came from, were those dick pills.
Yeah, because if they had tested if it was from tainted supplements, they would have tested his supplements. And there's another fighter this happened to whose name I can't recall, that they actually tested his supplements for the non-label listed ingredient, and they overturned his suspension.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they actually overturned his suspension because they tested his sample and a sample from the same batch from the supplement company, and it had an unlisted ingredient that he couldn't have known about before he took it.
I think that's more common than a lot of people might think. I mean, it's not like they're bottling that stuff in one individual thing. Like, this container is just for this. They mix that shit together all the time. So for a protein powder to have a little bit of something extra in it, I think it's more common than people might think.
Yeah, but for it to be at test levels, that's a whole other thing. For it to be at test levels, what I think is that guy was probably taking a supplement that was supposed to do one thing, and oh boy, it works great. And the reason it works great is because the supplement company is being shady, and they're not listing an ingredient that's the actual thing that's making it work great.
Well, see, to give you sort of a timeline on Jon Jones, in 2015 was that whole debacle with the hit and run situation.
And him popping on a cocaine test and him popping for cocaine use too. Right.
So he was suspended for a year for that. And then he came back, was supposed to fight in UFC 200 against DC Cormier.
He had a fight before that against Owen St. Peru. It was his comeback fight. That was the one where he was supposed to fight Cormier, and Cormier got hurt.
That's right.
And St. Peru stepped in and took that fight. And actually, if he fought Daniel that night, he would have lost because Jon did not look good in that fight. He won, but he didn't look like Jon Jones.
Yeah, but anyway, he was supposed to fight DC at UFC 200. He ended up not competing in that because he failed his drug test. And that was the one that gave him another year suspension. But his big comeback from the suspension was UFC 214. It was Jones Cormier 2. And he came back and Cormier looked good, but especially coming off a suspension and the potential for ring rust being in a discussion, Jones murked Cormier. It was pretty vicious. And
it was brutal.
Like, I was watching that fight, and I was like, for someone who apparently has ring rust, I ain't seeing it.
Yeah, there was no rust. He looked like the Jon Jones that we all know and love.
Yeah, but when I was watching it, I was like, that's Jon Jones. He's probably the best of all time for UFC. But 2 days ago, he failed another drug test, the test that he took in between weigh-ins and the actual fight. Now, I saw something that Frank Lester said. Frank Lester is a teammate for Jon Jones. And it's kind of conspiracy sounding because what he said was, just a quick quote real quick. He said that Jones is being set up. They're trying to ruin his life. And I'm trying to find the full quote here. He posted this: "I was just at dinner sitting next to Jon Jones when he got the phone call about the failed drug test. The story is between weigh-ins and fight night, he took an oral steroid, which makes 0 sense since it wouldn't do anything at all for Jon. It takes weeks for steroids to build up in your system to be a performance enhancer. This is a setup. No athlete would test clean his entire fight camp and then randomly take cheap fucking oral steroids between weigh-ins and fight night, knowing he would be tested once he is done fighting. They are trying to ruin this kid's life." So Lester is making it sound like a conspiracy theory.
I just feel like, what are the odds of that, though? who stands to benefit?
No one. No one stands to benefit from that. Jon Jones is one of the main moneymakers for the UFC right now.
Yeah, I mean, in my mind, it would take some serious juice to taint a USADA sample, to infiltrate, an association that does major drug testing for many different sports. So who stands to benefit from that? Who that could do that stands to benefit from it? Certainly not the UFC. That's probably going to be one of their 2 to 3 biggest stars moving forward, especially depending on what Conor does following, this fight with Mayweather.
Right. But I don't agree with Lester at all. I don't think it's a conspiracy. He either intentionally did it or he's the unluckiest fighter ever.
Yeah, I feel like the best outcome for Jon here is if he had a tainted supplement and he can prove it. I mean, and he's just going to have to ignore the public too, because, I mean, no matter what he says, everybody's going to suspect him now. So the best thing he can hope for is that he did have a tainted supplement and that he can prove to USADA that it was a mistake by letting them test a batch of that supplement. That's, in my mind, the best outcome for Jon right now.
Right. And, I mean, I know Jon Jones, he's looking, if it is confirmed that, he pissed hot, he's going to be on a 3 or 4 year suspension, so he's going to essentially miss his prime. But I think the real loser of this whole situation is Cormier.
Oh, absolutely. This is a lose-lose for Daniel. He either lost to Jon Jones, who lost dominantly to Jon Jones, who wasn't actually on steroids, or he got absolutely robbed from his, chance at the redemption of the big question mark on his career. His career, that's the kind of the defining, the black mark and the question mark on his career is you didn't beat Jon Jones.
Right.
And if he got that opportunity robbed from him by Jon cheating, he doesn't automatically get to say he beat Jon Jones because there's still the question mark. The question mark doesn't go away. You don't know that Jones couldn't have beat him without the steroids.
Yeah.
So no matter what, go ahead.
And to a lot of people, and surely to himself, Cormier will always be number 2. He'll never be the best.
And that is a bitter, bitter pill for a championship level competitor to swallow. For a lot of people, they'd probably go like, "Oh man, being the second best in the world or something, that'd be pretty cool." Well, that's not the mentality of somebody who could be a champion. I mean, it's number 1 or it's, you're still not the champion. He wants that. He absolutely wants to be able to stand up and say, I am the greatest light heavyweight mixed martial artist in the world.
Yeah.
And his opportunity to do that without anybody questioning it may be gone. I mean, who knows, Jones ever comes back and he gets a third shot at that fight. Who knows the UFC would even make it again, considering how bad it's blown up the last 2 times they've tried to make it.
Right. I don't know, man. It's a fresh story. This just came out 2 days ago, so all we can do is speculate. That's all we can do right now until we get an update. But I think we should go ahead and end it there. We're approaching our time limit. But next week, we're definitely going to be covering the results of the Mayweather-McGregor fight.
We also may have some conclusion or resolution on this whole Jon Jones thing. That might come up again. Might get to do a little, this is how it turned out on that.
Yeah, if anything comes up, we'll definitely cover that as well. But other than that, whatever comes up, comes up. If you have any ideas you would like for us to talk about, just send us a message at our email or right here on the YouTube video. But until next week, thank you guys for listening. My name is Sean.
And I'm John.
Thanks, guys. See you later.
Technology's just got a big old robotic dick up my ass right now.